Memphis riots of 1866. So a little bit after the Civil War ended, a little bit after we got the 13th Amendment, but we didn't quite know how to make the promise of full and equal citizenship a reality on the ground. Congress, as it was wont to do, was debating whether we really needed yet another amendment to the Constitution to clarify what civic and civil rights are, what equality before the law is. As it turns out, bloodshed in Memphis required them to move quite quickly. This is what happened. A white supremacist mob led by the Attorney General of Tennessee, right, the highest state officer, the highest lawyer in the state, led a rampage through the black neighborhood of Memphis. They burned down every church, every school. More than 100 people were killed, one of them white, who was an ally who was trying to help the rest of black folks. And that we know of, 5 women, including Frances Thompson, were brutally raped by the mob, who were dressed in officers' clothing. Okay? Freedmen's Bureau did their best. They interviewed the survivors of the riot, and Frances Thompson's story sung out for a greater audience. She very bravely talked about how she was viciously sexually assaulted along with her younger friend who was living in her house, Lucy. And the Freedmen's Bureau thought that this was such a powerful story that she had to come to Congress and tell Congress precisely what happened to her and to illustrate why, without a federal power to bring it in states when state leaders are bent to do all evil to black folks and everyone else, we needed something more than the 13th Amendment. So what happened? Frances Thompson came to Washington, D.C. just a few months after she was viciously raped, and she testified about her rape in front of Congress, and she answered questions about it. Now imagine this, a black trans woman in 1866 answering questions from an all-white Congress about being brutally raped by members of a mob led by the Attorney General of Tennessee, right? She was brave, to say the least, right? Her testimony, of the 5 people who testified, her testimony rang so true to so many people, newspapers around the nation reprinted her testimony in the newspapers. It was just a couple months later that Congress put together the final version of the 14th Amendment and ratified it, sending it out to the states for them to ratify it too. If you read through the final reports of Congress, they talk about the Memphis riots in this stirring testimony that really drove people to understand what was going on. So, what does Frances Thompson's story have to tell us? Well, she's one of many black LGBT people who's been disappeared from our history books, been disappeared from our Constitution. We have people who supposedly are, hand-tied to history, who want to come around and tell us, well, the voting rights of black people don't really matter. We can just ignore all of those amendments in that Civil War. 14th Amendment was never supposed to reach women who have been raped, or never supposed to reach LGBT people. Lo and behold, the voice that rang through in 1866, when this country was very different, was a black trans woman, Frances Thompson. I won't get into the nasty things that happened to her afterwards, but she was actually sort of persecuted for the rest of her life because the South was angry at her because she was such a principal role in securing the 14th Amendment. Now, the reason why I share Frances' story is, one, people should know about her, because this is truly an amazing woman who did great service to our country in the midst of a horrific personal tragedy, horrific national tragedy unfolding. But also, that's just one instance, one example, one story you haven't been told before. Why haven't we been telling this story, right? What differences would our world have made? What differences would our law have taken? What different turns would we have had? What different tradition would we be handcuffed to if we told Frances' story? I imagine